I had wanted it so bad. Hey everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel. This is Michelle here, and today I'm going to be sharing with you part 2 of my dance journey. Part 1 was from age 2 up until age 12, and that's where I left off. I actually didn't mention this in the other video, but I had switched full-time to my ballet studio. I had been going to a competition studio and a ballet studio. I think around then I had decided that I knew I wanted to be a professional ballet dancer when I grew up, so I wanted to focus more on that style and move in that direction. I was competing most every year at YAGP. Since I was 12, I was in the junior age category. I actually did end up placing in the top 12 with my contemporary solo, The Rain, choreographed by Susie Taylor. That was really exciting for me. Even though I was only going to the ballet studio, I still really loved competing and going to conventions. So I continued competing even though I wasn't going to a competition studio anymore. That year at NYCDA Nationals, it was going to be my second and final year in the junior age category. I started competing at their nationals at age 9, and I had been going every year. Up until this point, I had never won anything in their Outstanding Dancer program. When I was a mini, I had really hoped to place well at the nationals, and I didn't end up getting anything. This year, although I really wanted to win something and I had been working hard, I didn't want to get my hopes high too much because I didn't want to be really sad again like I had been when I was a mini. So I went to nationals. Everything went really well. The day of the gala, we performed our opening number, which was by Andy Pellick. And then, as always, Jolene Terry came on the stage to announce all the highest scoring dancers and then who would be dancing in the gala. He called my name in the top 12. I will never forget the feeling. I will say now that I'm really glad I didn't get anything as a mini because it just made the moment as a junior so much more special to me. That was my first time ever receiving something at nationals. It feels so strange describing it, but I actually was so happy that I was like laughing out loud, just laughing with joy. After that, I went to the Dance Awards. Now it's like probably the biggest dance nationals that there is. I again competed my solo, The Rain. I ended up making it into the top 10 for juniors. That was such a cool experience too. All the top 10, we got to recompete the audition combo that we had learned earlier in the week, and we also got to improv. I remember I was wearing purple and my mom told me that people on the live stream were like, "Yes, go purple girl." That was fun. Later that year for Nutcracker, it was kind of my first year with the older kids. I was 13. In the last Nutcracker I had performed, I had done Clara, and I knew that was going to be probably my last time because I was getting older and I knew I would need to move on. Usually the year after your Clara, one role that you really want to get is Columbine, which is the doll that comes out in Act 1. I actually did end up getting Columbine. I was also a mouse. Did not really like that, but I also performed Marzipan, which was called Flutes there. The next year, I choreographed my first solo titled Alone. Choreographing a solo when it's your first time is definitely a little bit challenging. I had trouble trying to figure out how to fill up the stage. Our house was pretty small back then. I would choreograph going side to side in our room, but the room was pretty small. Then once I got into a studio, I wasn't traveling at all. That was definitely something I had to like work around and figure out, but it was fun getting to choreograph for the first time and experience that. That year at nationals, I was a first year teen, so I went just to have fun and enjoy the experience, but I actually also did on-stage nationals along with my sister Jillian and Savannah. Jillian competed in the senior age category, I was a teen, Savannah was a mini. We actually all three ended up winning together, which was so cool and so exciting. The next year, I choreographed another solo titled Sunrise. Alone was more of a sad solo. Sunrise was definitely a happy solo. I actually competed it at one of the locations that they were filming Dance Moms. After I competed my solo, one of the producers told me that Abby Lee Miller actually wanted to meet with me, and I was like, what? As soon as I came out from backstage, she was like right there, and I was like, no way, it's Abby Lee Miller. She kind of just asked me some questions about where I danced and how old I was. Gave me a mini private lesson on développé side. I don't know why. It was really cool. I never expected that to happen. And then the next weekend, Dance Moms was filming again in New Jersey, and I went to that one too. Fun fact, that was the episode where Kelly and Abby had their crazy fight and Kelly said, "Get your finger out of my face."
Get your finger out of my face!
I was there at that one. I'm actually in the episode during the awards. There's like a little clip of me bowing with my trophy. So I was on Dance Moms. That year for Nutcracker, I knew that it was possible I could be in the running for Dewdrop, which Dewdrop is and has always been like #1 dream role for me. I could not be more obsessed with that role. I just feel like I'm living when I dance that role. I was 14. I knew there was a small possibility that I could be Dewdrop. I had the DVD obviously from the year before, so I studied the Dewdrop so much and I learned all the choreography and I practiced it. I remember on the first day of our rehearsals, they hadn't cast the roles yet. We were kind of auditioning for parts. My teacher was like, "Do you know Dewdrop?" And I was like, "Yes." And she was like, "You better." I actually got to do it that day. It went really well. I almost messed up a part at the very end, but thankfully I remembered just in time. And then I actually ended up getting cast as Dewdrop. I was on cloud 9 because I was doing my ultimate dream role. I was supposed to only be Dewdrop for 2 of the shows out of the 4, but the other girl that was sharing the role with me, I think she had like a little injury and she didn't want to push it. So I ended up getting to do it for all 4 shows. I was obviously sad for her, but it was definitely really fun getting to do it for all 4 shows. The next year, when it was getting around the time of our recital for the studio, there was a scholarship that happened every year. I'm gonna tell you a little backstory. The people that gave the scholarship were 2 parents who used to have a daughter that went to the studio who tragically died in a car accident. They decided to very generously gift $1,000 to a dancer that they chose to further their dance training every year to honor their daughter, which is a very beautiful thing. We would usually just do a regular class and then the mom, Cynthia, would watch the class and pick someone to win the scholarship. They usually announce who wins the scholarship at the very end of our studio's recital. She announced me as the scholarship winner, which was such an honor. Every year they would put the name of whoever won it in the program book, so each year a new name would be added. It was just really humbling to be chosen and to be a part of the history of the scholarship. I am so grateful to Cynthia and Peter for choosing me and for believing in me as a dancer. I hope I've made you proud. It definitely helped with paying for my classes in the coming year. I remember when the recital finished, I was crying because I think I was just like so happy and also a little bit relieved because I was really nervous about it and I really wanted to receive it that year. It was really special. That summer, at age 15, I competed at the World Ballet Competition in Orlando, Florida. That competition had so many incredible dancers. There were 3 rounds of competition. So the first round you would do a variation and a contemporary. The second round you do a different variation and a different contemporary. And then the third round you would do a third variation and then your first variation you would repeat again. It was really fun getting to go there and experience that, and I actually ended up making it through all 3 rounds, which I was not expecting at all. It was crazy to me. It was definitely an experience to remember. The only bad thing was in the final round, my third variation, which was Harlequinade, I hadn't really rehearsed enough. It just really wasn't ready and I fell out of all my turns. And unfortunately, that variation went first and I got last. All the dancers were like insanely amazing, so I was like, I shouldn't even be here at this point. But then after that, I recompeted my first variation again. My goal was to not get last. I hit my variation, so I was very happy, and I got second last, not last, so. True story, that was actually my goal. Sometimes it's the little victories. While I was at World Ballet Competition, my teacher told me that she wanted me to dance as the Sugar Plum Fairy in the Nutcracker that year. I was so shocked because every year a guest dancer had always come in to dance the role of Sugar Plum. It was never someone that went to the studio. So when she told me that, I was like, no way. From there, once World Ballet Competition was over, I went to the Pittsburgh Ballet Theater Summer Intensive. It was so much fun. I met so many new friends. Each level has a little performance at the end. I was in level 4. What we were performing was Coppelia. I was chosen to perform Swanhilda, which was really exciting. I definitely couldn't believe it. While I was there, I stayed with my great-grandma who lived in Pittsburgh. My grandpa came to Pittsburgh and then stayed with me at my great-grandma's house, and then he would drive me to and from the studios. It was definitely a fun memory I have. After the summer came Nutcracker rehearsals, and I got to dance the role of Sugar Plum, which didn't come without obstacles. I hadn't had that much experience in partnering, so I had a little bit of trouble like finding my way with that. But what was worse was my partner that I was supposed to dance with. How do I say this? He wasn't very respectful to the director. She actually ended up firing him the day of the show. So that was slightly traumatic for me. I like witnessed her screaming at him. One of my teachers had been helping me with the partnering just so I could be better at it and be ready to dance with my partner. He was, I think, supposed to do Drosselmeyer that year. He was a retired dancer, but since my partner was fired, I didn't have a cavalier. So he stepped in and performed Cavalier on the day of the show, which is a very, very challenging role. Normally, you can't just step into Sugar Plum or Cavalier. So that was very admirable. It meant a lot to me because he cared enough to do that for me, and I'm very grateful to him for that. It was really fun getting to dance with him. So that was definitely not the experience I expected to have as a Sugar Plum Fairy, but in the end it all worked out and I had a lot of fun. The next year I competed at YGP again, and I remember the floor was so slippery. You were not allowed to use rosin. They were like super strict on no rosin. Everybody was falling, and actually in the warm-up I did fall all the way down. I slipped and fell minutes before I had to compete, and that kind of traumatized me a little bit. I was like, how am I supposed to do this variation and like not be terrified for my life? But my mom really helped me out mentally. She told me the chances of you falling twice are not very high. So now that you've fallen during the warm-up, the chances that you're gonna fall again are pretty low. So that kind of helped me out mentally, and I actually ended up doing really well in my variation, and I won 3rd place. So that was fun, and also a good lesson in mind over matter. Like seeing everyone fall and feeling how slippery it was and just having to like block it out. And also the stage was rigged, which means that it was on a slant. If this is the audience and this is like the back of the stage, it went down like that a little bit. I'm glad I actually didn't know that until the competition was over, because that would have been another stressor. Around then we started taking rhythmic gymnastics stretch classes, which ended up helping our flexibility so much. I definitely recommend that, especially if you're younger and your muscles are still like agile. It might sound like it's just extreme stretching, but it's not. You do a lot of stretching, but you also do a ton of conditioning. We did a 2-hour-long class every week. We would spend like an hour and a half doing conditioning, and it was usually conditioning that involved stretching, and then after that we would do oversplits. It definitely helped us out a lot. We got a lot more flexible and stronger as well. That year at NYCDA Nationals, it was my final year in the teen category. I placed in the top 10, which was so exciting for me. I was very close to the gala because that year 5 dancers got into the gala, so I had this realization like, oh, I was close this time. What was a little bit disappointing though, that year at the Dance Awards, I had really wanted to get top 10 again. I hadn't gotten top 10 since I got top 10 as a junior. I had gotten the top 20 for teens when I was 13, so now it was 2 years later and I was still in the same category. It was my last year, so I really wanted to get top 10 so I could experience the improv again. I ended up only getting into the top 20, which is still really incredible, but I felt a little bit like I hadn't improved at all in 2 years since I was in the same spot that I was 2 years ago. So that was a little bit of a disappointment for me. That year, my sister Rachel was cast as Radio City Clara for the first time in New York City at the Radio City Music Hall. That was actually more exciting for me than most people probably know. Ever since experiencing the show myself, I had always wanted to get to know what it felt like to do all that in New York City at the actual music hall. I remember they did like this really big, cool tour where you explored basically the entire building for everyone that was involved in the show. I think just so you could kind of know where you were because the building is so big. And I remember going on that tour and just thinking it was the coolest thing ever, and we got to take photos on stage. That was another example of an opportunity that I felt like I had kind of missed out on when I was younger, and Rachel gave me that opportunity to experience. It was fun getting to watch her in the show and cheer her on. That year during Nutcracker, I got to perform Sugar Plum again, which was exciting. My partner was great this time, so we were good. The next year, during Easter, our church asked us to perform in their Good Friday service. That will always be a performance that I remember. It was very powerful. Just the somber mood and the power of what we were doing and what we were a part of just meant a lot to me. And then we also got to perform in our church's Easter Sunday service, which was definitely a lot happier mood, and that was so much fun as well. That summer, I did the Pittsburgh Ballet Theater Summer Intensive again. I was in level 5. We got to do like a section of Swan Lake. The main role was going to be the Black Swan. We had auditions for it. The first round we did, I think, like a little section from the variation, and I made it through that. The second round, we learned another section from the variation. I made it through that round too, and then the final round of our audition was Fuertes in the coda. Our main teacher that was doing the casting had us all gather around, and there were going to be 2 casts. He announced my friend Paulina first, and then he announced my name second. I just remember like catching my breath and being like, did he actually just say my name? I remember texting my family, probably in all caps, that I had gotten the role. I got to perform Black Swan. My mom and my dad came to watch it, and my great grandma actually came to watch because I was staying with her again. So that was really fun getting to perform for her. Black Swan has always been a dream role of mine, so it was really fun getting to perform a little section from it. That year I performed as the Sugar Plum Fairy for my 3rd and final time. It was a lot of fun. Also around that time I did my first photo shoot with Jordan Matter. One of the Radio City Claras already knew him, so he wanted to do a shoot with all 3 of the Radio City Claras, and that's how he met Rachel. It was just really fun getting to meet him and shoot with him that day. We had fun. You always have fun with Jordan Matter. He's got such a big personality, so it's not possible to not have fun with him. The next year, I competed at YGP again. This was going to be my graduating year from high school. It was going to be a year with a lot of laughs. I actually ended up winning a scholarship to the Washington Ballet School from Xiomara Reyes, who was a former principal dancer with ABT. Also, right before the finals at YGP, I got selected to be one of the Dance Spirit Cover Model Search finalists with 2 other girls, Kaylin Maggard and Haley Hartsfield. We got to go into New York City for a couple days, do a photo shoot, watch a Broadway show. We took classes at Broadway Dance Center. They planned this whole trip for us. It was so fun and so special. It was such an honor to be one of the finalists and to be all over their magazine. That year at Nationals, I received top 10 again, and then at the Dance Awards, I received top 20 for the senior age division. That fall, I started classes at the Washington Ballet, so I moved away from home. It was a really good experience. I learned a lot. The artistic director at the time was Julie Kent, who had just taken over. It was really cool getting to learn from her and just like be up close to her because she's such a ballet icon. She was also a former principal dancer with ABT. I remember I was like freaking out a little bit when she took a video of our class and she put it on her Instagram, and I was like, Mom, I've made it. I'm on Julie Kent's Instagram. I never in a million years thought I would be in a post on Julie Kent's Instagram, but there we were. That year, since I was at the Washington Ballet, I did their Nutcracker. I got to be a butterfly. I did Chinese. I didn't end up performing Flowers, but I did get to learn it, which I was bummed about because Flowers and Dewdrop, they are one. Dancing together to the same music. I think some of the reason why I love it is because the music is so beautiful and so full of joy. The rest of that year, I continued training at the Washington Ballet. One thing that was a little sad was I feel like I was capable of dancing better, and I just just felt like that whole year I kind of had lost a little bit of my momentum. It was definitely eye-opening for me going through that period, experiencing like what worked and what didn't, and trying to, I guess, find myself again and what set me apart. I was trying my best, but I just felt like I wasn't doing my best. It was a little bit frustrating because I didn't know how to like get out of that rut. I was lacking a little bit in confidence from that. That was definitely not the best year for me, but I learned so much from Xiomara and Julie and all my other teachers there. I'm glad that I had that experience, and I'm so grateful to have received the scholarship to train there. At this point, I was graduated, but technically I could still compete because for seniors at conventions, the highest age you can be is 19, and you have to count as 19 from January 1st. Since my birthday's in April, the year before I had counted as 17, which technically meant I could still compete the year after that as well. I decided that I wanted to compete again because I hadn't accomplished everything that I had wanted. I had had this dream since I was 9 years old of making it into the gala at NYCDA Nationals, and I just felt like I wasn't really ready to give that up. I wanted to keep trying, even though most people stop competing once you graduate high school. So I competed at NYCDA Nationals as a senior. It was an incredible week. I worked hard, I performed well, I auditioned well. When Joe announced the names, I made it through the first group into top 20. Then he steps forward and he announces the next line, which is the top 10. I made the top 10, and then he steps into the next line to announce who makes the gala. From age 9, I had been working towards this goal, wanting it so badly. So badly. Never making this goal. Even though I wanted to keep trying, I kind of had in the back of my mind that that was just a goal that was never going to come true for me. And I had accepted that. He stepped forward into the final line that was going to be who was dancing in the gala. He announced the guys first, and then he announced the girls, and there were 7 names that he called.
Top 7 ladies. Abby Costora, Jenna Melman, Olivia Alboher, Ali Boucher, Katie Reynolds, Shoshana Squar, and Michelle Pointer. There's the top 12. 5 guys, 7 ladies.
The 7th name, he says, Michelle Pointer. I remember putting my hands to my mouth and then running into the line, and like it all happened so fast. I was in so much shock, I couldn't even believe it. I remember hugging my friends. It started settling in a little bit as I was standing there and he was congratulating us. I started crying. I just couldn't believe it. This goal that I had had since I was 9 had finally come true, and I had kind of accepted the fact that it would never come true, and now it was coming true. And I remember thinking that night as I was getting ready to perform my solo, this was a moment that I knew I was going to replay forever in my head and wish I could go back and relive it just one more time. I remember thinking that and just being like, right now in this moment, you are in the moment. So just enjoy it, because you've been waiting for this since you were 9. Getting emotional right now. I remember seeing my mom, and the 2 of us just started crying because I had wanted it so bad, and I just couldn't believe it was happening. All these years later, and I still feel the same way about it. I will say to this day that it was the happiest day of my life. I can't describe how much that night meant to me. Getting to experience something that I had wanted for so long finally was just such a beautiful way to end that chapter at NYCDA. That was my last nationals there. I will never forget it. I have no words. Let's keep going. After that, I went to the dance awards. I hadn't made the top 10 since I was a junior. I remember really wanting to accomplish that goal again. I actually did end up making the top 10, and I was so shocked and excited. I got to improv. We did a slow song and a fast song. It was just so much fun, and that nationals will forever be the best nationals that I ever had. accomplishing 2 huge goals in the same year. Earlier that year, I had auditioned for a ballet company. Since I was getting older, I knew I needed to start looking for a job. I auditioned for many companies. I didn't get a company position, but I got a trainee position with American Repertory Ballet. That company might sound familiar to you. After nationals, I started there as a trainee. When the year started, I was still trying to find my way a little bit in ballet, kind of trying to discover what set me apart and what could make me stand out. The year started out and it was going fine, but I just felt like I was still stuck a little bit in that rut of not being able to stand out as a ballet dancer. I'd had this incredible nationals, but still in ballet, I couldn't really find my place. We had these 3 outreach performances that we were doing, and I was going to be in the core of the dream scene in Don Quixote. There were 3 variations. There was the Queen of Dryads variation, Dulcinea variation, and Cupid variation. I remember my teacher told a couple of us to learn them. She told me to learn the Queen of Dryads one. And I remember feeling like I did really well. And then she asked me to do that spot when we were putting the whole thing together. It had been a while since I had gotten to do like a special role, because at Washington, I hadn't done any. I was so excited to get to have a lead role again. I actually did end up getting to perform it in one of our outreach performances. We also were doing Don Quixote Act 1 in a different outreach performance, and she asked me to do Kitri for that. That was so much fun for me, and another main role that I got to tackle. I feel like after that, my confidence started returning, and I started finding myself a little bit more in the ballet world. I started realizing that my biggest strength was my stage presence, and I needed to start focusing more on amping that up. It's easy as dancers to focus on what we don't have, and whatever you do have, kind of like place it to the side. But what we need to remember is when you do that mentally in your mind, you're not using your strength to its full potential because you're not focusing on it. So therefore you're not trying to show it off. You're focusing more on what you don't have, which brings that more to life. And what we need to do is bring what we are strong at to everyone's attention, because if we put our attention on it, they'll put their attention on it. I started to try and go that route. And I'm not saying forget entirely about your weaknesses. Like, obviously we need to keep working at them, but they shouldn't be the main focus, and they certainly shouldn't be what you're focusing on sharing. I think I started getting better at showing what I did have, and therefore I got better roles, and then my confidence started going up. So that was good. I got to perform in Nutcracker with ARB. I was Snow, Flowers, and Chinese. I was definitely really excited to get to do Flowers again because I had missed it, and then also Snow I hadn't done for a little while. I definitely don't like Snow as much as Flowers, but don't tell anyone. Most people like Snow better than Flowers, so most people think I'm crazy. We had annual meetings where the artistic staff would kind of tell us how we were doing and what we should work on and all that stuff. I told the director of the company that I really liked ARB, and I asked him if he saw a possibility of me joining the company someday. He said that he did, but he wanted me to come back another year as a trainee. I decided that I would come back for a second year. Also, at the end of the year, I got to perform with the company in Beauty and the Beast by Kirk Peterson, which to this day is still one of my favorite ballets that I've performed. I think his choreography is absolutely genius. I performed at the State Theater, which is a huge, beautiful theater. It was my first time performing with the company in a show that wasn't Nutcracker, like something separate from Nutcracker. I was so excited to get to be a part of that, and it was so amazing. That summer, I worked really hard at my studio's summer intensive. I took classes there and I taught there a little bit. I was feeling really ready, like really in shape and confident going back to ARB for my second year in the trainee program. The year started off really good. The company was bringing back Beauty and the Beast from the year before, and I got to perform in it again. What had changed though was the previous artistic director was no longer there, and a lot of people had left and a lot of new people had come in, so the whole thing had kind of transitioned very much over the summer. So it kind of felt like I was starting over, like it was a brand new company. The company didn't have an artistic director, so there was just a ballet master that was kind of serving as the rehearsal director and artistic director. He was kind of running everything, so you wanted to get on his good side. During Nutcracker, he did all the casting. I actually was cast that year in Snow Flowers. I was also cast as one of the background people in Marzipan and Arabian. I was really excited for that because usually only the best trainees got to do those roles, so I felt really excited and special to get chosen. After Nutcracker, we started rehearsals for Giselle, which we were going to be performing in February. I was selected to perform as a peasant and a Willy. That was exciting for me. At this point, I knew that the ballet master liked me, so I kind of had the feeling that I was probably on his radar for maybe getting a contract with ARB2, which is the second company. We had our meetings and he told me that I was being strongly considered for ARB2, which I was so excited to hear. But then COVID happened. Everything shut down. The communication was really slow with who was going to get into ARB2 because everything was so uncertain. So they didn't even know how many spots they had. The ballet master kept emailing us and letting us know that he hadn't forgotten about us and he was still just waiting on how many spots he had. Then we got an email where he said he had made some decisions, but even though we hadn't heard from him, didn't mean that we hadn't been chosen. I still hadn't heard anything. I knew that some people had been chosen and I still hadn't. On May 7th, I actually saw a call on my phone. I didn't know the caller, so I let the call go by. But then I got a voicemail and it was from our ballet master at ARB saying that he wanted to talk to me on the phone. I got so nervous. I went down and told my mom. He just called me. I'm gonna go call him back. So I called him back. He started talking in like a pretty good mood, like happy voice. So I was like, okay, hopefully it's good news. He basically just asked me like, how's it going at the Quiner household? The whole time I was just like and then he said, we would like to offer you an ARB2 spot for next season if you would be interested. And I remember being so excited and I was like, yes, I absolutely would. I just couldn't believe that my dream had finally come true of becoming a professional ballet dancer. My professional career was finally going to start. As soon as I ended the call, both my parents came into the room because my mom had actually gone to get my dad and told him. They both had come up to my door right as I finished the call, so they came in. I remember turning around and saying I got into ARB2. I immediately started crying. I gave my mom and my dad a hug. I'll definitely remember that moment forever. All the stress of the years of like, was I gonna get into a company or not? Just like all that relief that I had finally made it. It was just so incredible for me. My sisters were actually taking class on Zoom. I came down and my mom was like, guess who just got a professional contract? And they all came over and hugged me. It was just an incredible moment, incredible day. I started my first day as a professional on January 11th. Normally you start the season in September, but since COVID kind of changed things, we had to start later. I remember just thinking like, I can't believe this is happening. I'm finally a professional. From there, I spent a year in ARB2. I spent a year as an apprentice. Then I joined the company. I got to perform so many amazing roles. A big highlight for me was my debut as Dewdrop with the company. Like I said, that role forever and always will be my favorite role ever. My sister Savannah joined the company a couple years later. We both got to perform Myrta in Giselle, and then eventually Rachel joined the company, and now the three of us are company members, which is so crazy to say that there's three of us at the same company. I've gotten to work with so many amazing people at American Repertory Ballet, and I've had so many incredible opportunities. I'm just so thankful to be a part of that company. That is the end of my dance journey. journey. I hope you were able to take something from that and relate to that. All of the ups and downs are what make your journey special and basically what make you the dancer that you are. I obviously couldn't have made this video if everything had gone amazingly. It would be boring. It was so much fun getting to share my journey with you all. Make sure you like and subscribe because we post every week, and we will see you at the next video. Bye!